She sat alone at the edge of the bright hall, back straight, hands folded so tight her fingers went white. The wedding lights were warm and golden. The music was soft. People laughed in small circles. Their smiles were easy and wide. But around every nightfall, the air felt thin, like a room that had forgotten to breathe. She tried to keep her face calm, but inside her chest, a hard wind turned. She swallowed and tasted salt and something like metal. She told herself to stay still. She told herself to look calm. She told herself to be a stone in a river. Stones do not cry. Eyes flicked her way. Not all eyes, just a few, but those few were enough to make heat rise in her cheeks. A whisper brushed her left ear, then her right, like tiny knives that did not cut skin, but cut deeper. The bride's gown moved like water. The groom's smile showed all his teeth. The crowd clapped when they kissed. Evra watched, hands in her lap, and she did not blink. Her body said, "Stay gracious." Her heart said, "Not again." Then a voice too loud to be an accident and too soft to be kind floated from a nearby table. "Isn't that the girl who—" The words did not finish, but they did not need to. A few people turned. A few mouths bent. A few shoulders leaned together like closing doors. Someone laughed, short and sharp, and covered it with a cough. The sound was small, but in Evra's bones, it landed like a drum. She stood. She meant to smile and leave with quiet grace. She meant to look like a cloud drifting away. Instead, the chair leg scraped the floor with a painful squeal. Heads turned. Faces tilted. A stem glass trembled and chimed. The music missed a step. She felt the first tear break free. She did not want anyone to see it. She did not want it to fall dot and then dash thunder dot not from the sky. Not yet, thunder from inside her. A low roll of something ancient and bright, trapped behind her ribs. It hummed like a warning. It hummed like a promise. The edges of the hall fuzzed. The lights dimmed for a breath, then steadied. Evra shut her eyes. Breathe. Count to 3. Be a stone. When she opened her eyes, the bride's mother stared at her with a tight smile. "Are you all right, dear?" Her tone said, "Sit down." Her eyes said, "Do not make a scene." The words stung because they were wrapped in sugar. Evra nodded once, that small nod people give when they need the air to stop burning. She turned toward the back doors. The tall doors were heavy. She pushed. Cold air rushed in. Night met her with wet hands. The sky was very dark, the color of bruised fruit, and a white moon peered through thin clouds like a watchful eye. The first raindrop hit her cheek, then another, then 100, then too many to count. The rain washed the tear away, so no one could see it now. Good. Let the sky cry for her. She stepped into the garden. The music blurred behind her. The gravel path crunched under her shoes. The air smelled like roses and wet stone and a little like smoke. She could still feel the room on her skin like sticky honey. She could still feel those eyes on her back. Her jaw clenched. The hum behind her ribs grew. The hum brightened. It wanted out. No. Not here. She hurried down the path. The garden lantern shook in the wind. The roses bent and bowed, dark petals shining with rain. She passed a white tent where the cake waited, tall and perfect, and she wished it could be the kind of night where cake mattered. She followed the hedges. She pushed through a gate. The garden fell away. The world opened. Before her lay the old forest, a line of black trees with smooth, wet trunks and long arms that swayed and whispered. The wind ran through them like a child through tall grass. In the distance, lightning stitched a fast, bright line across the sky. Thunder finally spoke. Real thunder, deep and wide, rolling over the ground and into her shoe solace. She shivered. Not from the cold. From the feeling that she was about to step into a mouth that could swallow her and keep her forever. She looked back once. The hall glowed like a warm box. Small shapes moved inside, happy in a quiet way that felt far, far away from her now. If she went back, she would sit again. She would fold her hands. She would swallow the hot stone in her throat. She would be harmless. She would be ignored. She would fade. She could not let herself fade. She lifted the latch. The gate clicked. She crossed into the trees. The rain grew louder under the leaves, then softer, then loud again as the wind shook the branches. Her dress dragged on wet ferns. Mud licked her ankles. The hem grew heavy. Somewhere a night bird called, a low two-note sound like a question that did not want an answer. Evra stepped carefully, but her breath came quick. That hum inside her did not soften. It sharpened like someone was drawing a thin silver wire through the center of her. She pressed a hand to her chest. It felt like heat. It felt like light. It felt like danger. She did not want danger. She wanted quiet. She wanted a bed with a wool blanket and the smell of clean soap. She wanted a kind voice and a cup of warm tea. She wanted to be someone else for 1 hour. Just one. But the forest did not care what she wanted. The forest cared about roots and rain and the slow work of time. And something else cared too. Something that did not walk but hunted. The first sign was silence. The birds stopped calling. The wind lowered to a hush. The leaves held their breath. Then came a soft snap of a twig behind her, almost polite. She turned her head slowly. Nothing. Only darkness and trunks and a thin white breath of mist twisting near the ground. She listened. A second snap. To her right this time. Then a third closer. Not a deer, not a small thing. A careful thing. She kept walking, but faster now, foot after foot, like counting. A silver flicker brushed her vision. She did not look down. She knew better. She knew what lived in her blood. When fear pressed too hard, it woke. When shame pressed too hard, it lit. She could not let it light here. The forest was old. Old trees remember. Old ground keeps secrets. She did not want to leave this part of herself here for the roots to drink. Another sound. Breath, not hers, slow and calm, like a person who had all the time in the world. She swallowed. She kept moving. She wished her heart would beat softer. She wished her shoes would not squish. She wished the rain would stop telling the whole night where she was. Her foot slipped. The hill under the ferns went steep and slick. She grabbed for a branch and caught a handful of wet moss. Her knees hit mud. Cold shot up her shins. She bit her lips so the small cry would stay inside. She pushed up slow, careful. Leaves stuck to her palms. She wiped them on her dress. The dress did not thank her. The hum in her chest peaked, then thinned, then returned brighter, like a star breathing. She knew the signs. She had learned them the hard way, the way that leaves ashes. She closed her eyes for a 2 count. She pictured a small blue lake. She pictured her own hands cupping that lake. She pictured the water cooling the light inside her just a little. The heat eased, not gone, just less likely to burst. A shape moved between trees far behind her. Another moved to her left. They were not careless. They did not rush. They were closing a circle. She could see it in her mind like a chalk line on a dark floor. She had been prey before. She did not like being prey. The path curved around a thick old oak, its trunk wide enough to be a wall. Beyond it, the ground dipped into a shallow ravine where rain ran in thin lines like silver hair. Stones shone like teeth. The ravine split the forest from an old service road used by gardeners who did not come at night. If she made it to the road, she could run. If she ran, she could reach the village lights. If she reached the village, the open spaces would scatter the shadows. Maybe she reached the oak. She touched the bark. It was rough and cool, and it steadied her for 1 heartbeat. She peered around the trunk. The ravine lay ahead, glittering with cold lines. The slope down looked steep but passable. The slope up looked muddy and mean, but she could dig her hands in and climb. She could. She put 1 foot forward. A low growl bled out of the dark to her right. Not loud, not even threatening. More like someone saying hello in a language made of teeth. She froze. A second growl rolled from behind. A third to her left. They were patient. They did not have to rush. She was one body. They were many shadows. She took her foot back and pressed her spine to the oak. The wood felt like a back hug from an old friend. She breathed into that. She let the tree pull a bit of her fear away. Then she opened her eyes and counted the places where the dark was thicker than it should be. 1, 2, 3, 4. More. The rain soft again. The wind slipped away. The moon pushed thin light down through the leaves. It slid over wet branches and made bright edges. It found Everest's cheek and lit the tear tracks the rain had not washed clean. The light felt like a hand on her face, gentle and knowing. Something old inside her opened its eyes. Silver. The flicker began at her collarbone, a fine thread unraveling from the hum. It moved across her chest like a slow spark under skin. Her breath hitched. The spark grew, no longer a thread but a small net of light. She thought, not now. She begged, not here. It did not listen. Power wakes when it must. It is older than please. She turned, set her left foot in the wet leaves, and stepped off the edge of the slope. Gravity took hold. The earth moved under her like a live thing. She slid, half running, half falling, arms out for balance. Mud spattered her dress. Stones bit her heels. Ferns slapped her calves. She kept her eyes on the far slope, on the catch, on the gain. She stumbled, slammed a hand into wet ground, pushed, and did not fall. Good dot above her, shapes flowed along the ridge line silent, watchful, sure. They did not need to chase. They had legs that could leap. They had a sense of where the small weak places waited. They were not tired. They did not feel the burn of shame. They only felt the clean line of the hunt. Ever reached the ravine bottom. Rainwater ran over her ankles, cold and fast. The silver net under her skin tightened and brightened. She could hear her own pulse now, not as thuds, but as soft ringing, like a finger circling the rim of a glass. The sound made the hairs on her arms rise. She dug her fingers into the opposite slope. The mud was slick. It tried to slide her back down like a hand that did not want to let go. She clawed higher, her nails filled with dirt. Her dress snagged on a root. She jerked free and heard fabric tear. It did not matter. Up, something softly landed behind her at the bottom of the ravine. Barely a sound, only a small shift in the water noise. The air cooled around her neck. Another landed higher to the left. Another to the right. The circle was closing not with heat, but with cold. She pushed harder. Her chest burned. Her shoulders shook. The silver net flared all at once, a quiet bloom of light behind her sternum. It wanted to be more than light. It wanted to be shape. She bit her tongue until a copper taste spread. The pain gave her one more inch of control. She kept climbing. Her palm slipped. She slid a foot. Mud took her shoe and did not give it back. She left it. Bare toes met wet earth and found a grip. She heaved and pulled and reached the top edge of the slope. Grass. She grabbed it and rolled onto the old service road. Gravel rough against her spine. Breath ragged and loud in her head. For a second, she lay with her eyes closed and felt the road's hardness hold her in place, as if to say, "You are here." You did not vanish. The shapes did not leap. Not yet. They gathered at the ravine's rim. She could feel them more than see them, like cool spots on the air. She rolled to her knees. Her left foot, without a shoe, pressed sharp stones. She did not hiss. She stood. She faced the line of trees across the road. The forest there was thinner. Beyond it, if she remembered the map on the gardener's wall, lay a field, then a creek, then the first fences of the village. Distance was not kind, but it was clear. The rain came harder. It blurred the world. It made halos around the few streetlights on distant poles. Her hair clung to her face. Her dress hung heavy, soaked to the bone. She felt small. But small things can move fast. Small things can slide where big things get stuck. Small things can survive a storm by bending with it. She took one step, then another. She did not run yet. Running would spark the chase. She walked like she belonged to the rain. The shapes flowed up the slope and onto the road, quiet as night falling. They did not growl this time. They did not speak in that old language. They only moved as one mind with many bodies. Evra did not look back because looking back can give fear a face. She kept her eyes on the thinner trees, on the place where she could pass like a thread through a needle. The silver net inside her loosened, then tightened again like breath. She knew what it wanted, to bloom into wings of heat, to turn her bones into a strong, strange shape, to make her run like a streak of light through the black. She had done it once. People had fallen. A house had burned. Silence had lived in the ashes for weeks. She would not do that again. She would not let the power choose for her. Not tonight. The first hunter stepped onto the road just behind her. Its feet made a whisper sound on the gravel, a sound too soft for such a heavy thing. Another to her right. Another to her left. They were close enough now that she could feel their breath, not on her skin, but on the air around her, like cold fingers pressed just above her shoulders. She quickened her steps, but her body stayed loose. She remembered something an old woman once told her. Don't show the fear your legs feel. Show the river your heart knows. The thin trees came closer. She angled toward a gap where two saplings leaned away from each other, their wet leaves polished to a dull shine. She slid through. Branches brushed her shoulders with soft slaps. The hunters followed, but the trees made them wider and slower. Good. She wove left, then right, then left again, not a straight line, but a pattern, like stitching. The rain hid her scent. The mud hid her prints. The wind carried her heat away. Lightning stitched the sky again, brighter, nearer. For an instant the world turned into a white drawing, the thin trunks, the wet leaves, the sharp line of her jaw, the long bodies behind her with eyes that caught the light and held it. Then the white went out, and everything was blue-black and moving. She reached the field's edge. Grass lay low and dark, heavy with rain. The ground softened underfoot, and the water pooled around her bare toes. She could run here. She could put the distance in minutes and make minutes into safety. She could let the power bloom just enough to push the body further. The net inside her pulsed. It wanted yes. She pressed a palm to her chest and whispered inside, not tonight, not like this, not the fire. The hum turned, as if it were listening for a better choice. She ran. The field opened around her like a wide, wet hand. Grass brushed her calves. Mud kissed her heels, then let go. Her breath found a rhythm. 1, 2, 3, pull. 1, 2, 3, pull. Her arms pumped. Her dress slapped her legs. Rain hit her face in steady needles and washed the salt from her lips. The hunters broke into the field behind her. Their feet made a low, steady drum on the soft earth. They did not shout. They did not sing. They only ran. Her left foot found a small hole. Her ankle rolled. Pain cut up her leg, bright and sharp. She did not fall. She turned that cut into fuel. She angled toward a line of broken fence where the field dipped into a ditch. If she jumped the ditch, she could crawl under the fence and use the posts as cover. She lengthened her stride. The ditch came fast, black line in the dark. She pushed off and flew for a breath that felt like 3. She landed hard on the far bank and slid on wet weeds. Her hands caught the bottom rail. She ducked under and pulled through, dress catching, wood groaning. She did not look back. She was already moving again. The field ended at a skinny creek that made small glass noises as it ran over stones. She splashed through. The water was so cold it punched a gasp out of her, but it also sang to the heat inside her, and for 1 second, the silver net eased. It faded from bright to soft. She took that second and held it like a warm coin in her pocket. On the far side of the creek, a cluster of low trees leaned together, their branches heavy with rain, their leaves trembling as if they too were afraid of the dark. Evra slipped under them and breathed the thick green air that smelled like wet roots. She crouched. She pressed a hand to the earth. The ground felt like a slow heart. She matched it. In, hold out. The drum of feet in the field slowed. The hunters reached the ditch. One leapt. Another misjudged and slid. Claws scraping wood. A soft snarl breaking the quiet for the first time. The third took the fence clean and landed quiet. They were not clumsy. They were only delayed. She did not have long. The village lights flickered ahead now. A few low windows and a tall street lamp with a wide hat. The lamp buzzed like a lazy insect. She could see the road that ran through the center. She could see the small shop with the red sign and the bench where old men told stories in the day. She could see a trash bin tipped on its side, and a cat trying to stay dry under it, yellow eyes wide. Safety was a thin word, but it was a word she needed. She stood and moved again. Slower now, quieter than before, not because she was tired, but because the space between being seen and not being seen can be the space between breath and no breath. She crossed behind the small shop. She kept to the shadows. Her bare foot left small, dark half-moons on the wet stone that the rain quickly softened back to shine. The hunters reached the creek. They sniffed the air. The cold water played tricks on their sense. She turned a corner and pressed herself against a brick wall, letting the rain paint her into it. Down the road, a car door slammed. A man laughed. The warm, loose laugh of someone who did not know the night had teeth. Her throat closed. She wanted to warn him. She wanted to tell him to go home, to lock his door, to put the kettle on, and keep his voice low. She could not. If she called out, she would put a bell around her own neck. The hunters did not like the village. They moved slower now, as if the straight lines of the buildings and the smell of old cooking oil confused them. One paced at the edge of the light, body tense, head low. One melted backward into shadow. One lifted its muzzle and tested the rain. Their circle was still a circle, only larger, stretched thin by walls and windows, and the sharp eye of the street lamp. Evra took the alley that led up to the old church hill. The hill was small, more of a bump, really, but the church door had iron on it, and a long chain and a sign that said "Keep Out" in faded paint, which to some meant "Keep In." The graveyard behind the church had stones that leaned like tired men. The big tree there had roots like thick ropes. She could use those roots. She could hide in that twist of earth and wait for dawn. Or she could keep moving and try to reach the next line of trees and then the next and then the road that led away from all this. Away was a sweet word and a bitter one. She reached the church fence. She climbed over. The iron was wet and cold in her hands. Her ankle complained. She told it to be brave. In the graveyard, the grass was tall and soft and smelled like wet leaves and old pennies. She knelt by the big tree and pressed her palm to a root. The root was firm and old and seemed to breathe back at her, slow and steady, like a giant taking its time. She let that slow breath come into her body. For a few heartbeats, she was almost calm. The silver net inside her shifted again. It was not tearing now. It was not blazing. It was something else. It felt like the moon laying a hand on her chest and saying, "Remember." Her mind slid back, quick as a blink, to another night with another storm. A door slammed. A shout, heat, a hand dragging her outside. The smell of smoke. The glare of neighbors' eyes. The kind of quiet that is a knife. She had run then too. She had not known where to go. She had not known who to be. She had let the power bloom that night because there had been no other door. She had watched it take shape and take over. She had been a passenger in her own skin. Not tonight. She stood, rain dripping from her lashes. She looked down the hill. The hunters had found the alley. They moved up it. Careful, not eager. The one in front lifted its head and looked at her, though the distance and the rain should have hidden her. It did not see her shape. It saw her heat. She thought, fine. See me. See me stand. She stepped back from the tree and walked to the center of the hill, open space where the church door watched like an old eye. The rain made the stone shine. The hunters reached the fence. They did not climb. They did not like the iron. They did not fear it either. They flowed along the edge, looking for a low place. The hum inside her gathered itself and rose, not as a burn, not as a push, but as a bell. It rang soft once, and the sound carried out from her in a small wave. The rain thinned for a blink where the wave passed. The grass lifted and settled. The hunters paused. Their heads turned in the same small tilt. They did not know this sound. They did not know this yes. Evra breathed in. She let the bell ring again, a hair louder, a hair wider. It was not fire. It was not claws. It was not a thing that breaks. It was a thing that binds. It was her, not the part that had been named shame, not the part that had been called curse, but the quiet part that had watched every storm and learned the rhythm of staying. Her shoulders loosened. Her jaw unclenched. The rain felt like rain again, not like 1,000 eyes. The hunters stepped back as one, a single ripple in 3 bodies. Not fear, recognition. The bell carried her name in a language without words. The night understood. The iron understood. The tree behind her understood. She was not asking to be spared. She was telling the night that she knew it. And the night, surprised, stepped half a foot away from her path. A low roll of thunder walked across the sky, slow and long. Lightning did not flare this time. The dark stayed whole. The hunters slid along the fence until they found the low spot near the fallen stones. They melted over and onto the hill, graceful and close to the ground. Evra did not run. She did not hunch. She kept the bell soft and steady, a line of sound that did not challenge, did not beg, did not pretend. It simply was. They gathered 10 paces away, their bodies a mix of shadow and wet shine. The front one's eyes glowed a little in the dim. Its head dipped. It took a step left and opened a path to the far stairs that led down the other side of the hill. It did not offer mercy. It offered a choice. Evra's throat tightened with something warm. Not joy. Not yet. But the kind of relief that feels like the first sip of water after running a long way. She stepped toward the stairs. Her bare foot slid and then found the stone's edge. She kept the bell steady. She kept her gaze low. She passed the hunters at a distance that could be a touch and was not. They watched her go, eyes a line of small moons in the wet. They did not follow Dot at the bottom of the stairs. The road bent toward the old bridge. Beyond the bridge, the land rose again and the forest began again. But that part of the forest was different, less old, less heavy, more open to the sky. She could pass through it and come to a ridge where the dawn always seemed closer than it should be. She did not know if dawn would be kind to her. She knew only that she was not done. She walked to the bridge. The rain made the river fat and loud. The wood planks the villagers had laid down years ago creaked under her weight and gave off the smell of wet rope. She put a hand on the railing and looked down. The water moved with purpose. It did not stay anywhere too long. She watched it and thought, yes, like that. Behind her the hill stood quiet again. The hunters faded the way night things do when they are done with a moment. The village lights flickered. A dog barked once and hushed. The church door did nothing. The big tree let its leaves drip like slow applause. Evra crossed the bridge and stepped back into the line of thin trees that would take her to the ridge. She did not feel safe. She felt awake. The bell inside her softened, then tucked itself away like a small animal curling in a nest. The silver net of light did not vanish. It settled into her bones the way a story settles into the person who must carry it. Rain slowed to a mist. The moon slid from behind the last cloud and spread a pale path on the wet leaves. Her ankle hurt. Her bare foot was numb. Her dress was ruined. None of this was the end of her. She moved forward, step by step, with the simple focus of someone who has chosen to keep going. The forest here breathed easier. Frogs called near a small pool. A night breeze smelled like pine and clean dirt. The ridge waited ahead, dark shape against a lighter sky. She could not see what lay beyond it. She only knew there was a beyond. Her lungs opened a little more. Her shoulders dropped a little more. The mouth of fear did not close, but it lost a tooth. The memory of the wedding hall dimmed, the way bright things do when they are far and small. She did not forget. She put it where it belonged, behind. She would carry the lessons, not the shame. She would keep the bell and guard the fire. She would choose when the silver came out of her bones and into the world. She would choose. The wind stroked her cheek. The moon lifted. The ridge neared. She could feel a new kind of quiet on the other side. Not the quiet of being silenced, but the quiet of space where a person can hear herself think. She would step over and meet that quiet, and in it, she would decide the next turn and the next. And you, listening now, walking beside her in your head, feeling the rain, hearing the river, tasting the fear and the strength, do not let this end here. Hold her name a moment longer. Hold the bell's soft sound. Hold the silver in your own bones. You're listening to Crimson Moon by Benny, where every heartbeat tells a story. Subscribe before the moon sets. The wind slowed as she climbed the ridge. The rain had turned to mist, light as breath. Every drop on her skin felt cold, but alive. The moon followed her steps, quiet and pale, watching from behind drifting clouds. Her legs trembled. Her heartbeat was loud in her ears. She wanted to stop, to rest, but her body told her not yet. The night still had teeth. From behind the ridge came a sound, soft, low, and steady. Not growling. Breathing. Many breaths. Heavy and close. Her stomach tightened. The hunters had not given up. They were waiting. Watching. She crouched low and pressed her palm against the wet earth. The ground shook, faint but real, as if something large had stepped into the world. The mist ahead shifted. Shadows moved inside it, long, smooth, patient. Eyes opened in the dark, golden like small suns. They circled her, silent, confident. One of them stepped forward. Its body was huge, its fur slick with rain, black as the night sky. Its teeth shone white, and its breath came out in slow waves of steam. Evra's chest burned. The hum inside her rose again, bright and sharp. The silver under her skin woke, crawling down her arms, glowing faint beneath her dress. She could fight, she thought. She could burn them all to ash. But she was so tired of fighting. So tired of running. The biggest hunter lowered its head. The others followed. They were ready to spring. Evra took one step back, then the air cracked. A deep growl tore through the ridge, louder than thunder. It was not from the pack. It came from the mist itself. The hunters froze. Their eyes flicked toward the sound. The mist thickened, then split apart. A man stepped through it. He was tall, his coat dark and dripping, his shoulders broad and steady like stone. His eyes glowed faintly silver, not like the moon, but like something older than it. His presence made the air heavy, full of quiet power. When he looked at the hunters, they bowed their heads almost unwillingly. Enough, he said, voice low, calm, but strong enough to shake the air. The hunters backed away. Their claws scraped the wet ground. They whined softly, tails low. In seconds, they vanished into the trees as if pulled by the darkness itself. Evra stood still. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know if she should run or stay. The man looked at her, and for a moment the storm felt small. Evra Nightfall, he said. Her name in his mouth made the world tilt. How did he know her name? Her heart jumped once, hard. She took a step back. Stay where you are, she said, voice trembling. He did not move closer. I'm not your enemy. The words were simple, but his voice carried something strange, command and care at once. He looked at her like someone remembering a dream. She stared back. You shouldn't know me. I've known you longer than you think, he replied. Your scent carries through storms. Evra blinked. You're one of them. He nodded slowly. One of them. But not like them. Lightning flashed above them. In that flash, she saw the marks across his neck, thin silvery scars that glowed when the light hit. His eyes caught the lightning and threw it back, soft and dangerous. She felt the hum in her chest reach for him, like recognizing something. It scared her. She stepped back again. Don't, she whispered. Don't come closer. I won't hurt you, he said quietly. If I wanted to, you'd already be gone. That truth sat heavy in the air. He wasn't bragging. He was simply saying what was real. Why are you here? She asked. He looked past her toward the trees. Because they were hunting you. And because I couldn't let them take what's mine. Her eyes narrowed. I'm not yours. He tilted his head slightly, studying her face as if the rain itself couldn't blur it. No, he said. Not yet. The words sent a chill through her. She didn't know if it was fear or something deeper. Silence fell. The mist drifted between them. The moon hung low, pale and bright, making the space between them glow. Evra could feel his power, calm but endless, pressing against the night. It made her own power stir again, restless under her skin. He took one small step forward, slow enough to let her see. You're bleeding, he said. Your ankle. She hadn't noticed. When she looked down, blood mixed with mud. Her leg throbbed. I'm fine, she lied. You're not. He sighed softly, as if talking to himself. You never are. The way he said it, like he already knew her hurt, made her chest ache. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing, he said. Except to keep you alive tonight. Her eyes met his. Why? He hesitated, then said quietly. Because the world doesn't get to eat someone like you. She didn't answer. She didn't trust the softness in his tone. But she couldn't look away. The forest was still. Even the wind had stopped moving. She could hear only his breathing and hers, both slow, both unsure. He held out his hand, not to grab her, but to show it was empty. Come with me, he said. You won't make it far alone. Her pulse jumped. Her head told her no. Her heart whispered maybe. I don't trust you, she said. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, not quite sorrow. You don't have to. Just walk beside me until the night ends. The rain started again, soft, steady, washing the world clean. She stared at his hand. Her fingers twitched, but she didn't move. Behind them, far away, a howl rose long, sharp, and cruel. He looked toward the sound, then back at her. They'll come again. And next time, I may not get there first. Evra swallowed hard. She stepped closer, but not close enough to touch. Her voice was small when she said, If you lead me into a trap, I'll burn the sky. His eyes glowed brighter. I know, he said. That's why I came. Then he turned, walking toward the deeper woods, where the mist thickened like a living thing. Evra hesitated only a moment before following. Her bare foot pressing prints into the wet earth beside his. The night watched them both. The girl who burned and the alpha who glowed, and it stayed silent, as if afraid to breathe too loud. The forest grew quiet as they walked. Only their feet made soft steps through wet grass and broken twigs. The air smelled like rain and cold bark. The moon hid behind clouds, leaving the path in dim silver. Evra walked a few steps behind Rowan, her breath uneven, her mind louder than the night. Every time she looked at his back, something inside her twisted. Why did he know her name? Why did his voice sound like he had spoken it 100 times before? She wanted to ask, but her throat felt locked. Her hands trembled. She curled them into fists so he wouldn't see. They reached a small clearing. A fallen log lay across the middle, covered in moss. Rowan stopped there and looked up at the sky. We'll rest here, he said. His voice was calm, but she could feel the weight behind it, the kind that came from someone used to giving orders and being obeyed. Evra didn't sit. She stood still, watching him as he knelt near the log and ran his hand over the moss, brushing it aside like dust from a memory. His movements were quiet, almost gentle. He looked dangerous, yes, but also tired, like someone who had fought too many nights and lost too many friends. She crossed her arms. You shouldn't help me, she said. It never ends well for people who do. He glanced at her, rain sliding down his jaw. I'll take my chances. Her chest tightened. She looked away, toward the trees that swayed softly. The wind hummed through the branches, and for a moment, She could almost see another night behind them. It came back to her. The firelight, the shouting, the smell of smoke and blood. Shadowvale Kin, her home. Her pack. She saw herself younger, running through those same woods with bare feet and bright eyes. She saw laughter, shared meals, training under the silver moon. She saw her mother's face kind and strong, always telling her, "You see more than others. Use it with care." Then the night it all broke. She had seen a vision that evening. A storm, red and endless, swallowing the village. She had tried to warn them. They didn't listen. They said her gift brought bad luck. But she saw it again and again, until it burned behind her eyes. So she spoke the truth aloud. The next day, the sky turned red. The wolves came from the north. The storm was real. But the vision had come too late. Her power lunasight didn't just show her what was coming, it pulled it closer. The moment she spoke, she made it real. She saw them fall. She heard their cries. The ground had glowed silver where she stood. The pack's leader shouted her name, not in anger, but in fear. And then silence. When she woke the next morning, the ashes were still warm. The trees were black. The others were gone. Her body didn't burn, but her heart did. That was the night she stopped calling herself Wolf. Evra blinked, the memory fading. Her face felt cold. She hadn't told anyone that story since the day she ran. She didn't want him, this alpha stranger, to see the weight she carried. Rowan spoke quietly. "You've seen too much for one life, haven't you?" Her eyes snapped to him. "Don't read me like that." "I don't have to," he said. "It's written all over your silence." Her chest ached. She wanted to scream, to tell him he didn't understand. But when she opened her mouth, all that came out was, "You should stay away from me." He stood and faced her. "You keep saying that," he said softly. "But you don't mean it." His tone wasn't proud. It was sad, like he'd said those words himself once. Evra shook her head. "You don't know what I am. Then tell me." She swallowed. The words stuck like stones. "I saw my pack die. I saw it before it happened. And when I tried to stop it, I made it real. My power, the lunasight, it turns visions into truth." Her voice cracked. "I'm not a gift. I'm a curse." Rowan's jaw tightened. He took a slow step closer, careful, like he was approaching something fragile. "Power isn't a curse," he said. "What people do with it is." She laughed, but it sounded broken. "Tell that to the graves behind me." The wind picked up. The trees groaned. She turned away so he wouldn't see her tears, but her voice shook when she spoke again. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to see things before they came. I didn't want people to die because of me." Rowan's voice came quiet, deep. "The moon doesn't ask before it rises either. It just does what it was made to do." She closed her eyes. "You talk like this is easy." "It's not," he said. "But you're still here. That means something." The words landed softly, but they stayed, warm in the cold. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like a ghost. Rowan turned toward the dark edge of the clearing. "Get some rest. I'll keep watch." Evra didn't argue. She sat by the log, pulling her knees to her chest. Her ankle hurt. Her heart hurt more. The mist thickened again, wrapping the world in silver. As she leaned her head back and closed her eyes. She saw flickers, faces, flames, the prophecies whisper she'd tried to forget. The daughter of night shall rewrite the Alpha's fate. She didn't know what it meant. She only knew the fear in her bones. Sleep came slow, filled with shadows and the sound of her name. Carried by a voice that wasn't his and wasn't hers, something older, calling her toward a destiny she didn't yet want to believe. The night was almost gone when Rowan woke her. His voice was low, calm, but carried weight. "Evra," he said. "We have to move before sunrise." Her eyes opened slowly. The ground under her was damp, and the air smelled of moss and rain. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she saw him, tall, still, watching the trees like they were alive and listening. Evra pushed herself up, rubbing her tired eyes. Her ankle still hurt. The ache reminded her she was real. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To the Glasswood ruins," Rowan said. "There's something you need to see." "The ruins?" Her voice carried a note of fear. "That place is cursed." He looked at her over his shoulder. "Or maybe it's waiting." They walked in silence for a while. The forest around them was strange, too quiet, too still. No birds. No wind. Even the rain had stopped. The air felt thick, like they were walking underwater. Every few steps, Evra caught her reflection in puddles. Her face pale, her eyes tired, a faint silver line glowing under her skin where her power still hummed. The path changed as they went deeper. The trees grew taller, their trunks turning smooth and white like glass. Moonlight slipped through the branches, bending into soft shapes that looked like eyes, watching, remembering. The deeper they went, the brighter it became, not daylight, but a kind of silver glow that came from the ground itself. Evra slowed her steps. "The trees," she whispered. "They're shining." "They're not trees," Rowan said. "Not anymore." When they reached the heart of the forest, she saw it, the Glasswood ruins. Broken pillars stood half buried in glowing roots. Ancient carvings covered them. Symbols shaped like moons, flames, and wolves with wings. The air pulsed faintly, as if the stones were breathing. Evra took a step forward, and the light under her feet brightened. She froze. "What's happening?" "They remember you," Rowan said softly. "Remember me?" She shook her head. "I've never been here." He stepped closer, careful not to touch her. "Maybe not in this life." She stared at him. "What are you saying?" He didn't answer. He only pointed toward the largest pillar. It was cracked down the middle, and inside the crack, a line of moonlight shimmered. Etched above it was an old verse written in a language that twisted and shimmered like water. Rowan read it aloud. His voice low and steady. "The daughter of night shall rewrite the Alpha's fate." The sound of the words made the air tremble. The light grew stronger. Evra's chest tightened. "What does it mean?" Rowan's eyes stayed on the pillar. "It means you were never a curse. You were a promise." Her breath caught. The word promise hurt more than it comforted. "A promise to who?" "To the same world that burned my pack." "The prophecy isn't about destruction," Rowan said. "It's about change. But people fear what changes them." Evra stepped back, shaking her head. "You don't understand. My visions destroy. My light burns everything it touches." "Then, maybe it was never meant to be light," he said. "Maybe it was meant to be fire." She looked at him, her eyes full of anger and disbelief. "Fire kills." He held her gaze. "And it also keeps people alive." The words sank into her. For a moment she wanted to believe him. But before she could speak, the air shifted again. A cold wind swept through the ruins, carrying whispers. The glow from the stones flickered. Between the pillars, figures began to form, transparent, faint, like fog shaped into people. They looked old and tired, their eyes pale and glowing. Evra's hands trembled. "Rowan." He turned toward the shapes but didn't draw his weapon. "Don't be afraid." "How can I not be afraid?" She whispered. "They're looking at me." One of the spirits moved forward, its face soft and familiar. Evra's breath broke. It was her mother. Her same eyes, her same hair drifting like smoke. The spirit's mouth moved, and though no sound came, Evra heard the words inside her head. "The moon chose you, little flame." Evra took a step forward. "Mama?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The spirit's hand reached toward her but stopped halfway, fingers glowing. "You did what the night asked. You saw what we could not." Tears rolled down Evra's cheeks. "Then why does it still hurt?" Her mother's face flickered. "Because truth always does." The light around them flared, so bright it hurt to look. The spirits began to fade one by one, their faces peaceful now. Her mother was the last to go. "Don't run from what you are," the voice said. Run toward what you're meant to be. When the light dimmed, the ruins were quiet again. Only the soft hum of the cymbals remained, glowing faintly under Evra's bare feet. Rowan stood a few steps away, watching her with something unreadable in his eyes. Not pity, not fear. Something deeper understanding, maybe. Evra wiped her face with the back of her hand. You saw it too, didn't you? He nodded slowly. Yes. She turned toward the sky, where the first hint of dawn touched the edge of the clouds. If the prophecy is true, she said, then I'm not just running from my past. I'm running from the future too. Rowan's voice was soft but sure. Then maybe it's time to stop running. She looked at him, the light painting her tears silver. And if I can't? He stepped closer, his voice a whisper. Then I'll run with you until you can. For the first time she didn't argue. She just stood there, between broken stone and waking sky, feeling the quiet pull of destiny wrap around her like cold light, beautiful, heavy, and impossible to escape. The wind shifted. The light that had filled the ruins thinned until only faint silver lines glowed beneath the cracked stones. Evra's breath still shook. Her heart still running fast. Rowan was beside her, silent. Eyes scanning the trees. Something was wrong. The forest, moments ago alive with soft whispers, now felt tight and watching again, like it was holding its breath. The air smelled different, iron, ash, and something colder than fear. Rowan's jaw tightened. He's coming, he said. Evra turned to him. Who? Before he could answer, the ground shuddered. Crows burst from the treetops, screeching into the gray morning. Then a sound followed, a howl, low and sharp, that split the air like glass breaking. Out of the mist came shadows, dozens of them, moving fast and sure. At their center walked a man with silver hair that looked like frost and eyes the color of burning steel. Karen Frost, rival Alpha. The kind of leader who ruled with fear, not faith. He stopped just beyond the circle of glowing stone. Behind him, his pack spread wide. Their bodies half-shifted, fangs flashing, claws long, skin rippling with fur. Evra could feel their growls deep in her bones. Karen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. So it's true, he said. The cursed girl lives. Evra's throat went dry. Rowan stepped in front of her, body tense. You shouldn't be here, he said. Karen laughed, a sharp, cold sound that carried through the ruins. Shouldn't I? You break every law of our kind to shelter a danger. You think we wouldn't follow? His gaze flicked to Evra, eyes narrow. She brings ruin wherever she walks. Even your forest burns when she breathes. The words hit like stones. Evra wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her voice hid behind fear. Rowan growled, deep and low. Careful what you say, Karen. I only speak truth, Karen said. Shadow veil fell because of her. And now you let her stand on sacred ground. The air crackled. The moon symbols under Evra's feet began to hum again. Faint but rising, Rowan's aura darkened, an invisible force. Heavy as Thunderclouds. Felt it too. His smile faded. He raised his hand and his pack moved forward, slow and sure. Their claws clicked against stone. Their eyes glowed faint blue. Rowan turned his head slightly toward Evra. When I say run, you run. Do you hear me? She shook her head, whispering, No, I won't leave you. His voice sharpened. You will. I can't protect you if you stay. Before she could answer, Karen's first warrior lunged. Rowan moved faster than sight. His claws flashed, catching the attacker midair, throwing him against a stone wall that cracked with the impact. Two more came from the sides. Rowan spun, his blade drawn, silver streak through mist. One fell. The other hesitated, fear trembling in its breath. Evra watched, frozen. She could feel the fight inside her chest too, a different kind of war. The hum in her blood pushed to be free, to help. But every time she used it, something broke. Rowan fought with grace and fury. But Karen was not still. He raised both hands. And his pack froze. Then his voice filled the air, not loud, but clear, sliding into every head like smoke. A telepathic call. He fights for a witch. Karen's voice whispered through their minds. He betrays the law. He betrays the blood. Evra gasped as the voice pressed against her skull. She could feel Karen's hate like ice behind her eyes. Rowan staggered for half a heartbeat, shaking it off. His teeth bared. "Stay out of my mind," he snarled. Karen smirked. "You can't silence truth, brother." That word brother hung in the air like poison. Evra looked between them, stunned. "Brother?" Rowan didn't look at her. His voice was cold now. "Not anymore." Karen stepped forward. "You think protecting her makes you noble? You think you're saving her? You're saving no one. You're choosing her over your own kind." Rowan's grip tightened on his blade. "Maybe it's time someone did." Karen's eyes flickered. "Then you die with her." He moved first, shifting mid-step, bones cracking, fur bursting, claws gleaming. The sound of it filled the ruins. Sharp and wet. Rowan shifted too, his body twisting, power rolling off him like a wave. 2 alpha silver against shadow collided in the heart of the glowing circle. The air exploded. Stone shattered. Light burst from the ground, turning rain to steam. Evra stumbled back, hands over her ears as the sound tore through her. Rowan and Karen clashed, claws striking, teeth flashing. Every movement was a blur of muscle and fury. Rowan's aura glowed white-blue, burning through mist. Karen's was cold black, cutting through light. Their growls were deep enough to shake the trees. The pack circled, waiting, their eyes wild. Evra could barely breathe. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. But something stronger rooted her in place. The light under her feet pulsed faster. Thump. Thump like a heartbeat. The ground answered her fear. Moon symbols burned bright again, silver flames licking the edges of stone. Karen threw Rowan against a pillar. The crack echoed. "Look at her," he roared. "The world bends to her curse. Even now she breaks what she touches." Evra felt something inside her snap. Tears mixed with rain. Her hands glowed faint silver. "I didn't ask for this," she shouted. "I didn't want any of this." The wind howled in response. Rowan turned toward her, eyes wide. "Evra, stop!" But the power didn't listen. It rose, wild and aching. Her vision blurred, light and shadow mixing. The ruins spinning. The spirits from before flickered at the edge of her sight. Whispering again, "The daughter of night shall rewrite the Alpha's fate." And in that moment, she understood this wasn't about prophecy or curse. It was a choice. Her hands lifted. The silver light poured outward, wrapping Rowan and Karen both. It didn't burn, it froze them mid-strike, held in the same beam of moonlight. The ruins went silent. Even the rain stopped falling. Evra's voice came out small, but steady. "No more fighting." The light dimmed slowly. Karen's form blurred, his anger caught between fear and disbelief. Rowan's chest heaved, his gaze fixed on her. When the glow faded, Karen stumbled back. He looked at Evra with something like horror. "This is only the beginning," he hissed. Then he vanished into mist, his pack scattering with him. The silence that followed felt alive. Rowan turned toward her, eyes full of something she couldn't name. Shock, pride, and sorrow all at once. Evra's knees gave out. She fell, the last bit of silver fading from her skin. He caught her before she hit the ground. She whispered, barely breathing, "The world won't stop hunting me." Rowan's voice was low, rough, close to her ear. "Then let it try." The forest was quiet again, but not peaceful. Smoke hung low in the air, soft and silver, like the ground itself was trying to breathe. Rowan carried Evra through the broken woods, his steps steady but heavy. Her head rested against his shoulder, and though her eyes stayed half closed, she could feel his heartbeat, strong and wild beneath his chest. The rain had stopped, but the night stayed wet and cold. He followed the river until the sound of water grew loud, then turned toward a hidden hollow beneath a rocky ridge. A cave sat there, half covered by vines and shadow. Inside, the air was cool, and the moonlight slipped through a crack above, drawing one bright stripe across the stone floor. Rowan set her down gently. She tried to speak, but the words broke before they came. He knelt beside her, tearing the edge of his cloak into strips. The cloth was rough but clean. His hands were warm, and when he touched her ankle to wrap it, she flinched. "Sorry," he said softly. "I'll be quick." Evra watched his face as he worked, jaw tight, eyes focused, mouth silent. The glow from the moon caught the faint scar running along his neck. It looked old, deep, healed by time but never forgotten. She wondered what story it told. "You shouldn't have stayed," she whispered. Rowan didn't look up. "I told you I don't leave people behind." "I'm not people," she said. "I'm the reason this keeps happening." He stopped, his hands still. "You think I don't know what it's like to lose everything?" Her eyes met his. "Do you?" He sat back, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then he said, "I had a mate once." The words came quiet, like a secret that had waited too long to be spoken. "She was light," he said. "Not the kind that blinds. The kind that makes you want to stand close so you can feel warm again." His voice trembled slightly. "She died in the border war 3 winters ago. I buried her under the frost trees. Since then, I've been half a person walking." Evra's breath caught. She could see it in him. The ache he carried like a second heart. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. He shook his head. "You don't have to be. I understand what it means to lose a world." She looked away, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Then you understand me more than I want you to." Her voice cracked, and the truth slipped out before she could stop it. "I watched my pack burn. Rowan. I saw it before it happened. I screamed their names in my sleep, but the fire still came. They said it was my fault. They were right." He moved closer, careful not to touch her. "It wasn't your fault." She laughed quietly, bitter and small. "That's easy to say when it's not your family in the ashes." He leaned forward, his voice low and raw. "You think I didn't blame myself for my mate's death? Every night I ask what I could have done. Every night I hear her voice in the wind. But guilt isn't love, Evra. It's just a chain." The silence between them thickened. The cave felt smaller now, filled with the sound of 2 hearts still learning how to beat. Again, Evra turned her face toward the crack of moonlight on the wall. "Do you ever stop hearing them?" He hesitated, then said, "No, you just learn to answer softer." The words stayed with her. She didn't speak for a while. The river outside whispered through the rocks, and the air smelled of rain and pine. When she finally looked at him, his eyes had softened. They weren't the cold silver of an alpha anymore. They were something human, something tired. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Because I can't watch another life break for something it didn't choose," he said. Her chest ached again, but in a different way this time, like a door slowly opening. The moon shifted higher. The beam of light crept across the floor until it touched them both. It painted his face silver, brushed her cheek with glow. He reached out, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. His hand lingered for a breath too long. Evra's heart stumbled. "Rowan, don't be afraid," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I see you." She swallowed hard. "You don't." "Yes, I do," he said, leaning closer. "All of you. The fire, the fear, the part that still wants to be held even when it swears it doesn't." Her breath caught. Their faces were close now, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. The moment hung in the air, fragile and heavy. He stopped just before their lips touched. His eyes flicked to hers, asking without words, but she turned away first, trembling. "You shouldn't," she whispered. "I break everything I touch." Rowan leaned back slowly, his jaw tight but his voice soft. "Then I'll learn how not to break." They sat there in the moonlight. 2 broken hearts learning to breathe in the same space, neither whole, neither healed but alive. The night outside shifted again. And the wind carried a faint sound, a howl far away, long and sharp, reminding them both that peace never lasted long for people like them. Still, for that moment inside the cave, surrounded by silver light and quiet pain, they let themselves forget the world waiting beyond the dark. Morning came gray and heavy. The rain had stopped, but the forest was still dripping. Every branch letting go of water one drop at a time. Evra sat at the mouth of the cave, watching the fog roll across the trees. She could still feel Rowan's warmth beside her from the night before. But now there was distance. He stood outside, talking in low tones to two of his scouts' wolves who had found them at dawn. Their faces were tense, their eyes full of warning. Evra couldn't hear every word, but she could sense the shift in Rowan's scent, something cold and careful replacing the warmth she had known in the night when he came back inside. She saw the truth on his face before he spoke. "The council called an assembly," he said quietly. "They know about you." Her stomach turned. "How?" "Someone told them." His eyes lowered. "My beta." The words hit like a blow. "The one who fought beside you in every battle?" He nodded once. "The same." Evra rose to her feet. "Then we should run." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Running will make you guilty in their eyes. If we face them, I can protect you." Her voice trembled. "You can't protect me from what they already believe." "I have to try," he said. But his tone was softer than before, like even he didn't believe his own promise. By noon, they reached the clearing where the council gathered. It wasn't a hall or throne room. It was an open circle surrounded by tall stones, old as the first wolves. Rain pooled in the cracks between them, and torches burned low, their smoke curling through the damp air. At the center stood the council, three elders wrapped in dark cloaks, their faces sharp and still. Behind them stood Rowan's beta, a lean man with cruel eyes. His name was Lauren. Evra felt every gaze on her as she stepped forward. Whispers stirred like snakes in grass. "That's her," someone muttered. "The cursed one. She burned Shadowvale," another said. She lifted her chin, but her hands shook where no one could see. Lauren's voice carried through the clearing, smooth and venomous. "She carries the mark of Lunacite," he said. "The same blood that destroyed her pack." He turned toward Rowan. "And you, our alpha, hide her among us. You endanger us all." Rowan's growl rumbled low. "You overstep, Lauren." "Do I?" Lauren smiled thinly. "Tell them what you saw, Alpha. Tell them how the ruins flared under her feet, how the spirits rose, how the prophecy was spoken again." The elders turned their eyes on Rowan. "Is this true?" one asked. Rowan hesitated. It was only a breath, a heartbeat, but it was enough. Evra felt her chest tighten. That silence said more than words. One elder raised a silver chain and dropped it onto the wet earth. "Bring her forward," he said. Rowan stepped forward fast. "No one touches her." Lauren smirked. "Then you bind her yourself." For a long moment, Rowan didn't move. Then slowly he reached for the chain. His hand trembled. Evra's breath caught. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't." His eyes met hers, full of pain. "If I refuse, they'll kill you here." "And if you do it," she said, tears rising, "you'll kill what's left of me." The council watched, unmoved. The air was thick with the smell of metal and rain. Finally, Rowan wrapped the chain around her wrists. The silver hissed against her skin, burning small marks into her flesh. She bit her lip until it bled, but made no sound. The elders began to chant softly, old words that turned the air heavy. Lauren stepped closer, his voice slick with triumph. "The prophecy says she will rewrite the Alpha's fate." "What if that fate means your fall, Rowan? What if she is not your savior but your end?" Evra's heart pounded. The crowd drew back, whispering, their fears spreading like smoke. She could feel their judgment, their hunger for someone to blame. Rowan's breathing grew sharp. "Enough," he said, but Lauren didn't stop. "You think she's a gift, but she's a storm. The same storm that burned her home will burn you." Evra felt the fire under her skin stir again. The hum she tried so hard to bury. The chains glowed brighter as the silver met her power. Pain crawled up her arms. Stop! Rowan roared, but the elders raised their hands. She cannot be freed, one said. Until the moon judges her truth. Evra's knees hit the ground. The earth was cold, the chains biting deep. She looked up at Rowan, her eyes shining through tears. Do you believe them? He didn't answer fast enough. That small pause, one heartbeat of silence, was the sharpest. Cut of all. Something inside her cracked. She laughed once, soft and bitter. So even you doubt me? Rowan stepped forward, face pale. Evra, no. You don't understand. But she turned away, her voice breaking. I understand too well. The torches flickered. The air shifted. The power that had slept inside her began to wake, slow but sure. The chains burned brighter, then cracked with a sound like thunder. Every Wolf in the clearing stepped back. Evra rose, the silver falling from her wrists in smoking pieces. Her eyes glowed faint white. She looked at Rowan one last time. Pain deeper than rage in her voice. You were the one person I thought saw me. I was wrong. Then she turned, and the light swallowed her, leaving nothing but silence and the echo of her broken heart. The night came fast, black and wild, carrying the smell of blood and smoke. Far beyond the council ground. Shadowvale burned. The trees glowed red. And the wind carried the sound of war howls, metal fire, and the sharp cries of the wounded. Evra stood on the hill overlooking it all, her body trembling. Her wrists were scarred where the silver had cut, still burning from the council's chains. She had run for hours, through forest and fog, trying to forget the look in Rowan's eyes, his hesitation, his silence. But there was no forgetting. The memory followed her like a shadow. Now, standing here, she saw what her running had cost. Karen Frost's army was everywhere, black wolves flooding through Shadowvale's gate. Eyes glowing like cold stars. Smoke twisted up to the moon, turning it red. The smell of fear filled the air. Evra's breath shook. She felt the hum in her chest again, the lunacite flame still trapped, still fighting to break free. But she had no control left. Every time she had used it, it had destroyed. She clenched her fists. No, she whispered. Not again. Below she saw Rowan. He was fighting in the center of the chaos, his fur silver white under the moon, claws flashing against Karen's soldiers. He moved like lightning, but there were too many. They surrounded him. Something inside her twisted. She should hate him. She should turn away. But her heart didn't listen. A scream rose from the village. A child's voice. Evra froze. She knew that sound, the sound of fear before loss. And then she moved. She ran down the hill, feet slapping through mud and ash. Sparks stung her face. The ground trembled beneath her steps. The air grew thick, hot, and heavy. She passed burning homes, broken fences and bodies, wolves and humans alike. Everyone was a weight pressing against her ribs. When she reached the square, the fight had turned brutal. Kaer stood at the far end. His form half shifted, face sharp and cruel. Eyes like shards of winter. Rowan faced him, bleeding, but still standing. The two alphas circled, power curling around them like storm wind. Karen saw Evra and smiled. So the witch returns, he said, his voice low and cutting. Come to finish what you started? She didn't answer. Her eyes moved to Rowan. His chest rose and fell in quick, harsh breaths. Leave, he said, his voice hoarse. You shouldn't be here. Evra's throat tightened. Neither should you. Karen laughed. Touching. The cursed and the broken. He lifted his claws, blood dripping down his arm. I told you she would bring ruin, brother. And here it is. Then he struck. The ground split. The air shook. Rowan barely dodged, his claws slashing across Karen's chest. Silver light burst from the wound, but Karen only grinned, unfazed. His own aura flared dark blue, burning through the night. Evra felt the hum in her chest roar to life. She saw the future again, brief, bright flashes of it. Karen tearing Rowan apart. The flames rising higher. The pack falling. The end of everything. Her body began to glow faintly. The light crawling up her arms, pulsing like veins of fire under her skin. No, she whispered again, louder this time. Not this way. The prophecy's voice came back, soft but clear. The daughter of night shall rewrite the Alpha's fate. Evra's breath caught. She stepped forward. Karen turned to her. You would fight me, little ghost. I don't need to fight you, she said, her voice steady. I just have to stop you. He lunged out the moment he did. The lunacite flame broke free. Light burst from Evra's chest, not red. Not white, but pure silver dot. It swept outward in a wave that caught Karen mid-stride. Throwing him back like wind through paper. The ground cracked open. Every fire in Shadowvale turned silver. Rain began to fall, not water but small drops of light, glowing as they hit the earth. Rowan stared, frozen. The glow wrapped around Evra's body, reshaping her. Her hair turned white as snow. Her eyes burned like two small moons. Her body half-shifted claws of light. Skin shimmering like crystal. Half Volf, half goddess. When she spoke, her voice carried through the battlefield. No more killing. The soldiers stopped mid-motion. Karen tried to stand, growling through blood. You think you can command the moon? I don't command it, Evra said. It speaks through me. She raised her hand. The sky responded. Silver fire rained down from the clouds. Not burning but cleansing. Every Volf caught in its glow felt their rage fade. Their bodies trembling as the flame drew darkness out of them. Karen screamed as the light struck him. His form breaking apart, pieces of shadow peeling away. Evra closed her eyes, tears mixing with light. You were never my enemy, she whispered. You were only lost. Karen fell to his knees. His eyes flickered once, then went still. When he hit the ground, the light faded, leaving smoke and silence. The ancient spirits rose again, hundreds of them, glowing faint and pale. They filled the air like whispers of wind. Their voices spoke as one. The daughter of night has kept the balance. The Alpha's fate is reborn. Evra swayed, her power dimming. Rowan caught her before she fell. His arms wrapped around her tight. Her glow faded slowly, the moonlight slipping from her skin. He looked at her, voice breaking. Evra, what did you do? She smiled weakly. I stopped running. The battlefield was quiet now. The fires were gone. Only silver mist covered the ground, and in it, for the first time, Shadowvale slept without fear. Evra rested her head on his chest. Her last whisper before sleep was soft but sure. I am not your sacrifice. The world was quiet again. Too quiet. The fire that had swallowed Shadowvale was gone, but its smell stayed: smoke, ash, and something like rain on stone. The sky had turned pale gray, the moon fading behind clouds that looked tired. The trees stood still, heavy with silence. Even the wind had stopped to listen. Rowan knelt in the middle of the battlefield, holding her. Evra's body was warm but weak, her hair now white as the morning fog. Silver dust clung to her lashes. Her eyes fluttered open. Just once. You saved them, he whispered, his voice breaking. You saved us all. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Not all, just enough. And then she closed her eyes again. Her body shimmered faintly, and before his hands could tighten, she slipped through them like smoke gone. Rowan froze. For a heartbeat he couldn't breathe. He looked down, his arms empty, his palms glowing faint silver from her touch. He rose slowly, calling her name once, twice, 3 times. Only the echo answered. The mist around him thickened, curling around his feet like fingers. He stumbled forward, his voice raw. Evra, come back! But the woods swallowed his cry. The pack gathered behind him, dazed, limping, afraid to speak. Some bowed their heads. Others just stared at the place where the light had been. The ground there was smooth now, burned clean, not black, but bright, as if moonlight had melted into the soil. A young Volf stepped closer. Alpha, is she gone? Rowan's throat tightened. No, he said, though his voice trembled. She's still here. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere. But deep inside he felt the hollow space she'd left, a silence too wide for words. The forest shivered. A sound drifted through the trees soft, far away. It was her voice. Faint like a dream. Don't follow. Not yet. He turned toward the sound, heart racing. The pack waited. But he didn't move. He could feel it, the pull of her power somewhere beyond the ridge. Calling to something older. Something wild. She's not dead, he murmured. She's changing. The others said nothing. They didn't understand. Maybe they never would. A light wind began to move again, brushing the smoke away. Somewhere in the distance, a single silver feather drifted down from the sky, landing near Rowan's foot. It glowed softly before fading into the dirt. He bent down, his fingers trembling as he touched the spot. I'll find you, he said under his breath. Even if it takes forever. The mist rose higher, swallowing him and the others until the clearing was empty again. The last sound was the low echo of his heartbeat. Fading into the woods. And far away, beneath a different moon, Evra opened her eyes. The forest around her was strange, quiet, but alive, full of whispers and light. Her body felt different, lighter, stronger. She looked at her hands. Faint silver veins glowed beneath her skin. The lunacite had changed her. She was no longer running. She was becoming. A voice not human, not Wolf, but something in between murmured from the trees. The daughter of night has risen. Evra looked toward the horizon where the forest met the dawn. Her eyes burned bright again. But this time there was no pain, only purpose. She took a deep breath, and the air bent with her. Then she walked into the light, barefoot, calm, unafraid. And now? Tell me, listener. Would you have chosen her? Or would you have feared her too? Because not every hero wears a crown, and not every monster wants to destroy. Sometimes, the one the world fears most is the only one brave enough to save it. If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to Crimson Moon by Benny, where the fire never dies. The forest held its breath. Every leaf, every stone, every drop of mist waited. The war was over, but the ground still remembered. Ashes glowed faintly where fire had touched. The smell of smoke mixed with the wet green of morning. The moon hung pale and thin, like an old scar fading in the sky. Rowan stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes fixed on the place where she had vanished. His hands hung open by his sides, fingers still trembling from the echo of her light. Evra's name lingered in the air, a sound his lips couldn't stop shaping. He had seen many battles. He had buried many lives. But nothing had ever felt like this strange, silent ache where something greater than love had lived and gone. Behind him, the pack worked in hushed voices, tending wounds, gathering the fallen. No one spoke of what they'd seen. How could they? How could words fit what had just happened? The sky raining silver fire, the prophecy breathing, the cursed girl becoming light. Rowan closed his eyes and listened. At first, he heard only the slow crackle of dying embers. Then, faintly, a sound far, distant, and lonely. A howl. It rolled through the trees. Soft but deep. Rising from the far ridge beyond the river. Not a cry of sorrow. Not rage. Something else. Something searching. Rowan's heart stilled. It was her. He took one step forward, then stopped himself. The promise she had left him echoed in his chest. Don't follow. Not yet. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay. The pack needed him. Shadowvale needed rebuilding, but every part of him, every bone, every heartbeat pulled toward that sound. The howl faded into silence. For a long while, nothing moved. Then the quiet broke. A rustle. Soft at first, then sharper. Rowan turned. Eyes narrowing. Karen's body, still lying where it had fallen, twitched. The pack froze. One of the young wolves whispered, "Alpha?" Rowan stepped closer, his claws half drawn, eyes sharp. The air thickened again, cold and strange. The ground around the corpse shimmered faintly, thin trails of silver light running across the soil like veins. Then, the dead man's fingers moved. Rowan crouched, every muscle ready. The body arched once, then dropped. The eyes opened, pale and empty but glowing faint blue. A voice came from the still mouth. Too low to belong to any living thing. It did not sound like Kaer on. It sounded older. It sounded patient. The daughter of night has risen. It whispered, words scraping like metal against stone. But the true alpha has not. The pack stepped back. Fear spread like cold water. Rowan's eyes burned. Who speaks? The voice laughed, a dry, hollow sound. Glasswood remembers. The story is not done. Then the body stilled again, eyes going dark, the light fading from the veins in the earth. The forest fell silent once more. Rowan stood over the corpse, his breath sharp. His heart thundered. He looked toward the east, where dawn was just beginning to break. The sunlight reached across the trees like fingers searching for something lost. Evra, he said softly, almost to himself. What have we woken? The wind picked up again, slow and cold, carrying whispers through the broken forest, voices too faint to understand, but old enough to fear. Rowan turned back to his pack. Bury him deep, he ordered quietly. No moonlight touches this grave. The wolves obeyed without question. As they worked, Rowan walked to the edge of the trees. His gaze lingered on the horizon where silver mist rose in slow waves. He could almost see her there, walking between light and shadow, a figure made of fire and mercy. He whispered one last promise to the wind. I will find you, Evra, nightfall. And when I do, we'll finish what they began. The wind answered with a faint sigh. And somewhere far away, deep in the glasswood, another light flickered to life. A soft, pulsing glow beneath the roots of an ancient tree. The light grew, then split, forming two shapes, eyes, bright and wild, opening for the first time. A voice, low and new, broke the silence. The moon chooses again. The forest shivered. The earth and the story did not end. It only turned its page. You've been listening to Crimson Moon by Benny, where every heartbeat tells a story.